to the sixth session of the Ask the Expert Ascent webinar series that we've been bringing to you during this COVID times. Today's is a very it's a very needed topic, and it has come from our cohort to discuss conversations and have conversations around emotional well-being and mental health and of entrepreneurs during these times and leaders around this time. As you would recall, about 4 or 5 months back, we released the first ever mental health study done with entrepreneurs at our conclave in November, with the objective of starting active conversations around it, which covered what are the unique stressors to entrepreneurs, what are the manifestation of these on the entrepreneurs and leaders, and how coping mechanisms are being built around that, by themselves. So very interesting conversation. I'm glad that we have people in good numbers joining us today. It's my honor to introduce both our panelists for this session today. Dr. Aparna Joshi, who's a practicing psychologist and psychotherapist. She's completed her PhD from Tata Institute of Social Science. Dr. Aparna has been providing consultation in the areas of mental health, counseling, gender and sexuality to several national and international organizations for the last 25 years. At present, she heads 2 field action projects at TISS. One is called the iCall, which is a multilingual, free of cost and professionally run national level technology assisted psychosocial counseling service. And Sukoon, which provides counseling services to individuals and couples who present with matrimonial conflicts in legal structures. So that's Dr. Aparna Joshi. Welcome to you. I would quickly introduce Rajvi Mariwala, who's the director of Mariwala Health Initiative, with whom we had collaborated and introduced that study to the Ascent cohort and the larger entrepreneur cohort. Rajvi leads the Mariwala Health Initiative with an educational background in business economics and international relations. After gaining an MBA degree, Rajvi worked for some years with Marico Industries and is currently a board member of Parcham, an NGO that works with adolescent girls through sports in Mumbai, Thane, working with refugees, immigrants, and low-income US citizens to support their small business at Mercy Corp International has been one of Raj's most enriching work experience. I would like to start this session by asking Rajvi to lead the conversation from a continuation perspective on our mental health study that we had released. Over to you, Raj and Dr. Aparna.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for taking the time out to be here, Ascent cohort. I think first I want to actually congratulate everyone at Ascent for having started this conversation early with us last year, because at this particular time, in light of COVID and the pandemic, we know that everyone around the world is facing a certain sense of anxiety and uncertainty, which are actually perfectly valid responses to a global emergency. But it has brought mental health issues to the forefront. So I'm very glad that Ascent and Ascent members already have a head start on this. Now, because we did this study last year, we already know a couple of things, that some of the top stressors were around cash flow, employee performance, pressure to perform. Now I think this has gotten even more heightened during COVID times. The other issue is how to manage the workforce, which is challenging now as everyone is moving to work from home, is maybe moving to manufacturing schedules that have been on again, off again. And as we all know, it's very tough to ramp up or shut down all of a sudden. And so I have this to say, which I've been saying actually once we publish the study, is if we want a mentally healthy workforce, and if we want to invest correctly in our biggest asset, which are the humans who are part of our organizations, we really need to invest in mental health. But more importantly so, if I have to take a line from the struggling aviation industry, I'm going to say what they always announce, please put on your oxygen masks before assisting others. And so I'm glad that the leaders of all the organizations have taken time out today, because until and unless you lead from the front and with your own mental health, we will not be able to put on oxygen masks for our teams and our employees. So having said that, I'm just going to hand over to Aparna.
Thank you, Raj, and thank you, Archana, and thank you, Ascent team, Ascent family, for inviting me for this webinar. It's very strange because I can't see you, but I assume that you are keenly listening to me. And I sincerely want to echo what Raj has already said. I want to congratulate all of you for taking time from your busy schedules to talk about something so close to home, but so neglected, which is your own self and which is your own mental health. So actually, I'm not an entrepreneur. So I have tried my level best to sort of build on my interactions with entrepreneurs. And definitely, I was a part of one of Ascent's events. And I think I had a very close encounter with some of the stories and the journeys and the difficulties and the highs of those journeys also. But most importantly, I have been reading also how entrepreneurs are affected during times of COVID. So I think I'm going to build on all of this. I've already been given some of the questions that were sent to me. So hopefully I answer some of those questions, and some I think will be answered during the course of action and conversation. But essentially what I'm planning to talk about today, and I've been told that I will sort of, present a small sort of a, structure just to anchor our conversations for you to respond to also and to build on this. And then of course the floor is going to be open for conversations and question and answer. So I think what I'm going to take you through is how being an entrepreneur itself is a very, very stressful affair, and how COVID on top of it is contributing to some of those stressors. Then I'm going to talk about how this stress is manifesting in an entrepreneur's everyday life, and some ways in which you can deal with this. Because I feel that no webinar is good enough if it just tells you what stress is about, but doesn't tell you how to deal with it. And then of course, through question answers, we will be able to unfold it far better. So I think entrepreneur is, what I understand is somebody who sees a need, sees a challenge in the market, responds to it right from conceptualization to implementation, and is extremely passionate and creative about one's journey. And they are crazy people who have crazy ideas, but they want to change the world and are capable of changing it. While this journey can be extremely exhilarating and very, very rewarding, of course, it's full of stress. So let me just first of all tell you, why are we talking about mental health in these stressful times? Yeah. So I think being an entrepreneur is stressful in itself. There were pre-existing stressors prior to COVID also. And instead of making an academic presentation, what I've tried to do is look at different kinds of literature and see what are the different kinds of stressors that an entrepreneur is likely to go through. And some of them Raj has already pointed out. So I think they are to do with professional lives, managing team, finances, long hours, social isolation, pressure to perform and not to fail at all. Yeah, constantly there is a pressure to succeed and meet deadlines. And there is this new thing that people keep talking about, which is work-life balance. So people also not only expect you to be a successful entrepreneur, but a successful partner, a successful family person, a successful holistic human being. And I can imagine that how challenging this must be. But when I look at all of these stressors, one theme which binds many of these stressors, that is of responsibility and accountability, right? So many of the roles that all of you are playing, unfortunately or fortunately, the buck stops at you, and you are answerable to several sets of people whose hopes are pinned onto your own journey. So I can imagine that this is quite a hefty kind of a load on your shoulders, and all of you are navigating through your journeys even prior to COVID with this kind of a weight. Then there is stress from personal life, balancing your work life, giving time for family life, balancing your vulnerabilities also. So how much of your work stress do you bring home or not bring home? I think that has to be also taken into account. And I've been reading, and I have been also talking to my clients, and I understand that there are unique stressors experienced by women entrepreneurs who have to be entrepreneurs, but also have to be women. So I have to also respond to the traditional gender role expectations, and which have unfortunately got very, very enhanced during COVID times. And women are really struggling through their journeys. So these are some of the pre-existing stressors which have got exacerbated during COVID times. Now, how is this stress manifesting? So this is one of the latest studies which tells us approximately 49% entrepreneurs suffer from at least one of the mental health conditions, and some of the names are here, and many of them have actually been subjected to psychiatric hospitalization during this due to this stress. So I think this is high time that we do have that strong and tough exterior, but also get in touch with our own vulnerability and acknowledge that this is a serious issue. If there is chaos within, there is going to be chaos outside also. So if you get clarity within, perhaps there is a greater chance that you will bring clarity to your decision making and overall well-being in your life also. There is good enough research which tells us that entrepreneurs who are resilient, who are persistent, consistent, resourceful, optimistic, these are some of the qualities that define resilience, are linked then with success and good performance also. So being mentally healthy is important for your success and for your performance also. It's not just good for being a better person, but even better professional. Despite all of this evidence, and I'm sure you are all well-read, well-exposed, professionals, and despite that, one finds that people don't come forth and seek help, which means there's a huge stigma around mental health. The narrative that I require mental health help is equated with weakness, madness, or some sort of a deficit within the person. That's why people are not willing to talk about. As I said, mental health is something that you breathe and live on an everyday basis. But are you aware of it, and are you doing something of it, are two questions that I'm going to pose through this presentation. Yeah. Now, COVID is definitely, I think, bringing a lot many crises. And I'm just going to talk about a map of mind in a minute in front of you. Each person is responding in a different way, but still there is a predictable pattern when you look at the entrepreneurial community and how they are responding to this crisis also. The reactions can change, but as I said that I'm bringing common themes, and it's always best to be prepared as much as you can, as much it is within your control, and hopefully this session and this conversation will help you do that. Yeah, people ask me, what is the definition of mind? It's a very philosophical question. So I thought that why not bring it in a concrete sort of fashion in front of all of us, so that linked to each of these four corners, there are some things that you can do to take care of your mental health. Yeah. So I have put a word right in the middle called self, and I have also put another word called psychic interactionism. This is a term that we use in psychology to say that these four things which are related to your mind or well-being are linked with each other. One of them is your emotional well-being. The other one is the way you think about your life and your reality. The third one is the behaviors you're doing, you're acting. And the last one, which is neglected or only looked at, which is body, right? So I'm going to actually talk about how COVID and stress related to that is affecting entrepreneurs in these four domains. Obviously, I think people are undergoing a lot of emotional turmoil ranging from sadness, fear. There's a constant worry, anxiety. There's a hypervigilance. People believe that if they are alert, they can predict, they can do something. And there's a new phenomenon that psychological associations across the world are saying, that people find worrying is safe. They feel that if I keep worrying, then which means I'm doing something. But worry doesn't necessarily get you into a productive space. It may exhaust you without actually contributing to anything constructive. People are feeling powerless. All of entrepreneurs have gathered a lot of courage and a lot of togetherness to combat some of the things that they have to face on a day-to-day basis, but they're feeling helpless. Some people are feeling numb. They are not feeling anything, right? That itself is a sign of trauma, that it's almost like your systems are so flooded that you can't take any more emotional input. People are feeling lonely. Some people are expressing this distress through a lot of anger, irritability, and some people are constantly complaining that I don't have any motivation. I'm just going through the motions, but I don't feel like doing anything. As far as thoughts are concerned, there are professional worries, obviously. There are worries about disclosing some bad news to your family, to your employees, or to yourself also. Acceptance about some of the inevitable, futures. There are worries about loss. There are worries about COVID. You contracting COVID or your loved ones contracting COVID. People are glued on to social media and television just to keep pace with whatever is happening so that they feel in control. I'm hearing a lot of existentialist concerns also. Those who can think meta. What is the purpose of life? Why am I here? Where is Earth going? Where is humanity going? And of course, how to manage this work-life balance, what to tell my family. Do I talk about all my vulnerabilities, all my losses, all my future predictions or not? Body is telling you something on an everyday basis. Body is responding either with fight, constantly fighting, or flight, whereby you're withdrawing, you're not connecting, or there is a fright, there is a constant kind of a fear which is locked into your body, or freeze, numbness, you don't feel anything. You can see sleep, appetite. People are constantly telling me, for example, in my sessions, that sometimes they are just right in the middle of work day, they start panting, they start palpitating, and they don't know why they are not able to breathe. All of these are simple symptoms of trauma and anxiety, and a lot of people actually talk through bodies. See, our culture doesn't allow, particularly for men, to express their vulnerabilities. Body vulnerability is another way of so they may not say I'm feeling bad, but they may say that maybe my body is aching, I have a headache. That's another way to communicate also. And the last one is behaviors. People are showing both coping and adaptive behaviors, but not so adaptive behaviors. There's crying, there are anger outbursts. People are not answering calls or constantly on social media. I can see both ends of the story. And people's online, one of my clients constantly says that I am a great believer in talking to people, but right now one phone rings and I start feeling very, very anxious. I don't want to engage to anybody and I don't want to answer a question, how are you doing? There is a low and patchy productivity. So there are bouts of great performance, and then there is a very, very zero work productivity day also. Yeah. Where do we have to head? Yeah. So stress is not all bad. All of us know that. This is a very, very famous graph that tells us that if you are in the green zone, optimal stress, which helps you perform, that is the stress that we want. Many people tell me, are you asking me to take away the stress? Because that will make me complacent, and I can't afford to be complacent. So definitely, I think the green zone is where we want to be. But the greater the stress, the poorer the performance. And that's the reason why we are having this session also. Yeah. So now, having laid this background, I want to quickly talk about what is it that we can do to take care of yourself, right? And if you yourself are the primary instrument of change, that tool or that instrument has to be healthy in order to translate everything into action.
Right. Yeah. Dr. Aparna, if you can take it a little closer, I think some people are having challenges listening to you.
So definitely, I think let's find out what are the ways in which we can take care of ourselves. Yeah, I showed you some 4 boxes: emotions, behaviors, cognitions or thoughts, and your body. And I'm going to talk about some of the basic things that you can do in order to take care of those 4 quadrants also. So the first thing is, everybody tells us to think positively. I'm going to give a different message, slightly different. Positivity need not be always rational. Positivity need not be always realistic, right? So you need to, I've been hearing the power of positive thinking. If it's not actually in tune with reality, you're just creating some clear or unrealistic pressures on yourself, which you can't ever meet. So I think your thinking has to be realistic. I have noticed some patterns amongst entrepreneurs, besides the one that I talked about, which are contributing, which are larger themes, larger discourses, which are even more contributing to the worries and anxieties. The first one I've been constantly hearing is, I am business and business is me. I and my professional identities are fused. There is no separation between the two. And that is one of the most difficult challenge for people to work upon, but being aware of that is the first step. The second one is internalization of a discourse, which is very widely prevalent in entrepreneurial community. There is no pain and no gain. If you don't go through painful journeys, then there is no gain, right? Well, we can minimize the pain and still have gain. Yeah. The next one is fear of failure. I don't think our school systems or our education system or our families prepare us necessarily to deal with failure. And if failure is in my business is going to be my own failure, because business and me are fused, then obviously I think we need to develop coping mechanisms of dealing with failure also. Another narrative that I keep hearing in entrepreneurial community is this entire focus on quantitative considerations of success, numbers, finance, money, as against qualitative needs of well-being. In measuring your success in terms of meaningful, authentic relationships or your well-being or your satisfaction, somehow I see that as a missing discourse in the entrepreneurial community, which is also contributing to some of these unrealistic thinking patterns. Last but not the least, two important things for men. The discourse around being a man is being tough, being strong, being invincible, knowing all the answers, be it right from which bus route to take to which puzzle to solve to which international problem to solve also. Men are supposed to know everything and never supposed to show their vulnerability, because it's contraindicated as far as the traditional masculinity is concerned. I think all of this is contributing to the added pressure and unrealistic thinking, along with stigma in help seeking, that if I seek help, I'm weak or mad or whatever it is. Yeah. I think being aware of your thoughts is first step. Maintaining a thought diary. If you are seriously interested, I can send you several tools after this webinar so that you can take in charge of your own mental health also. So maintaining a thought diary, and there is a particular format in which you can maintain that thought diary, which will help you track some of the patterns. See, we feel that every day we think differently, but my job as a psychologist or a psychotherapist is to find what are those recurring themes in your thinking which are contributing to distress or to well-being. Yeah, so you also need to be able to do that. All of us actually do in our thinking show some characteristic thinking errors. We catastrophize, we generalize, we take one small instance and say everything is defined by that. We also do self-labeling. One failure, I'm a total failure. There are so many errors that commonly people perform and peculiar to the entrepreneurial industry also. And we need to be able to look at our pattern, find those errors, and find, are we worrying because it feels safe, because it feels in control today? Then I think that is really counterproductive. Having identified some of these errors, you can then modify some of these errors. Yeah, quick tip I can give is what we say, 3 question technique. To any thought, you can ask just these 3 questions to find out whether it is a realistic thought or an unrealistic thought. The first one, what is the evidence for and against my thought? Second one, is there any alternative way in which I can think about the same reality? Maybe there is one, maybe talk to somebody else and they may offer another perspective. And the third thing, even if it is absolutely true, what's the worst that can happen? Can I stand that? But what is the best that can happen? Can I think of some positive gains also after this? Every time we are thinking, I think if we can think about whatever I'm thinking, whatever I'm doing can be divided into things that I can control, things I can influence, and things I can't control and influence also. So that at least you don't...
Sorry, Dr. Aparna, if you could repeat those 3 things because somebody's asked.
Sure. 3 questions.
Yes.
The first question is, whatever, first of all, you find your thought, peculiar thought. And I can send you a handout to find out what are the common characteristic information processing errors that all of us perform while looking at reality. And these errors contribute to further distress. So if you have found one thought which is again and again bothering you, creating a lot of distress, we can ask 3 questions. First question, what is the evidence for it and against it? Second, is there another way of looking at it? Maybe I missed something. Maybe I can talk to somebody and find another perspective. And the third one is even if it is true, what's the worst that can happen? Can I do something about it, or what's the best that can happen, so that I'm prepared? And linked to that is this, that I need to be able to seriously distinguish between things I can control, things I cannot control but maybe influence, and things I don't have any control or influence over. So I think we need to have the humility to surrender also, and just deal with it. Life is too bad, and we sometimes just have to deal with it. Right? Last couple of slides, and then we will start taking questions. Yeah. I feel that one of the other things that all of us need to develop is emotional literacy. And this is not just during COVID times. I think this is important to become a very aware human being and a good, successful entrepreneur also. I think 3 words as far as emotions are concerned, we keep saying, I'm sad, I'm mad, or I'm bad. I think emotions, if you go to Google gives us at least hundreds or thousands of emotional, labels whereby we can identify our emotions. So I think being aware of those emotions. A lot of clients, when they start talking to me in the first sort of an encounter, give me this whole narrative, which is entangled and completely bundle of emotions. When you start labeling emotions, it immediately gives you some clarity. There's some sorting of your patterns and emotions, and it immediately brings the arousal down. You remember, as I said, that our brain in trauma either flies, fight, or freezes, or it gets into an anxiety mode. I think we need to unflood our systems. Yeah. Not fearing emotional vulnerability. Just being vulnerable is not antithetical to being strong. I think everybody is giving messages that being vulnerable, in fact, is being strong. People want to see you as a whole human being and not some made up human being who puts up a persona of a tough person, right? Allow yourself to experience negative feelings also. There are extremely good exercises in mindfulness or other, very well proven researched exercises which you can do. There are great apps which you have on your own smartphones also, which you can download and take care of your emotions. Emotions are also predictable. We can identify our triggers and prepare ourselves for that. Keeping track of our positive developments is extremely necessary. Yeah, because I think otherwise we have a very black and white view, and all psychology research tells us that people remember negative events much more than the positive events. So at the end of the day, it might be a great idea to write them down also. And the last one is grounding techniques. Again, I can send you some handouts about this, because these techniques help you unflood or soothe your aroused bodies, your minds, and they don't solve problems. None of these things are instantly going to solve problems. People keep asking me, can you give me tips? I don't want to go through these entire journey. Mental health, unfortunately, doesn't work like that. It is a lot of hard work, but grounding techniques can help you do something quickly. Are you taking care of body? I feel that a lot of you must be bombarded with these messages, but I can't tell you the value of having a visceral experience. Just get out wherever, or look at the sky, or I can see today people are fragmented. Their bodies are fragmented. They are at one place, but they don't know what they are eating, what they are saying. They are completely scattered. So you need to feel like one body and take care of yourself. Do a quick body scan on a regular basis to find out where are you experiencing pain, and do some relaxation to fix that also. Some of you are feeling motivated, some of you are not, some of you are big time procrastinating. I think a stop technique also. I keep telling people that the minute you realize that I'm procrastinating, I think that's where the journey starts. And in substance abuse, we use two beautiful terms. We say there is a lapse and there is a relapse. So whatever is your desired goal, if you move away from that goal, that's a lapse. Yeah. But if you now start reinterpreting that lapse as, oh my God, I did not move towards my goal, I'm a failure, I'll never be able to do that, then there starts a downward spiral journey, which is a relapse. Wherever you find yourself lapsing, pick up pieces, move. Do behavioral contracting. Whoever is your loved one, tell them, remind me, am I in touch with myself? Do that. It might be very, very helpful. Last couple of points. choosing media consumption. I can tell you all of us are glued onto our screens all the time. Let me share two very interesting facts which are given by American Psychological Association. One, social media is far more harmful than other media. So stay away from it as much as you can. And the second one is, any media, if it is done in excess, is harmful for your mental health. So keep that. Follow social distancing. Don't follow emotional distancing. Both are not synonymous. Keep talking to people. Ask for help. Yeah. Many of you are worried that, can I be vulnerable? Will I burden others with my stories? Choose wisely who you can trust, but do talk about your worries. And what I say lastly, do a balance between self-care and help care. Yeah, help others. All psychological evidence tells us that if you help others, it has a fantastic effect not only for others, but it has an effect on your mental health in terms of sorting your thoughts, secreting warm, happy hormones called dopamine inside you, and it definitely makes you feel better. Practice gratitude. I can send you this handout. There is a gratitude cycle and circle here. If at least every 2 days you fill this, I think it's extremely helpful. Yeah, what makes me happy? What am I grateful? What expectations of normal am I letting go? I think that is also extremely important. And last one is, what am I creating? What am I cultivating? And what am I inviting today? Through this presentation, this is my last slide. I just want to say that COVID can actually put us into these three zones. Yeah. But who do I want to become during COVID-19 times? Do I want to stay in fear zone? Do I want to stay in the learning zone? And my presentation is an effort to help you move from fear zone to learning, or if you work hard, towards growth zone. Yeah. So I really hope that, you actually practice some of these insights that, and I'm practicing them too, because I don't think, you can just talk about it and not walk the talk. But I'm happy to take questions also hereafter. Here is a number of iCalls helpline. I think I can talk about it later on, but I can just keep it on.
Let's keep that static. These are numbers that we have circulated with our members when we launched the session as well. I think there are some audio questions which are already lined up. Shravana, can I ask you to activate those, please?
As Shravana is activating those, I just wanted to wrap up what Aparna said, that thank you for attending and engaging with this, because entrepreneurship is such a deeply personal journey, and I think it remains difficult because it is so deeply personal, and there is a romanticization of risk taking, there's a romanticization of failure, and at the same time our quantitative returns are seen, but our qualitative considerations are never seen. And as I said at the beginning, and especially in light of COVID, it's very important for leaders of organizations to lead from the front for their employees and employee well-beings. And I know that there are some questions related to that. And we'll be sharing a report done by one of our partners called United for Global Mental Health, which is called Return on the Individual. And it's about investing in mental health of individuals and the returns it gives you. So for every $1 you invest in your employees' mental health, it gives you $5 of return. And we'll share that with the Ascent team. But overall, I'm going to wrap this up by saying, in light of COVID, let's change the way that our organizations work. And as we move to realize that distress is a collective human response to the challenges of COVID, let's engage with our own mental health, and not just with self-awareness, but also the realization that self-care is not just for you as an individual, but also it's collective, maybe your family, people around you, it's organizational, and it must be a key part of your systemic response to any challenge, COVID and beyond. Okay, questions.
Shravana, can you activate one of the audio questions?
Yes, Archana. We have one member who's raised his hand. Can you please unmute yourself to ask your question, please?
Is it happening, or I should quote with other questions?
Yeah, can we move to the questions in the Q&A section, Archana?
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
So,
I'll work on this.
Yeah, so Dr. Aparna, there's a question saying that to cope with stress, previously I would go for a walk or a haircut or swim or dine in a restaurant or meet friends. Now what do I do?
Yeah, I think this is a very
Dr. Aparna, a little closer.
Sure. Is this better?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think this is a very important question because see, I don't think anybody was prepared for this kind of a epidemic and all the fallouts that it has had. We've had some coping strategies developed prior to COVID, and all of us are familiar with those. We know how to time them, when to use them. But I think COVID has really created a new challenge in terms of first, not being able to use some of those old strategies and pushing us to develop new ones also, right? So I feel that yeah, maybe some of those old strategies, we have been telling all the callers on iCall, or I have been telling all my clients also, that what are some of the adaptations of the old coping strategies that can be available still within your current life circumstances. But the second one is also, I feel that it's also the learning zone that I showed, the middle zone and the growth zone. Yeah. So I think it's also a time to develop some new ones. Maybe you felt that I can deal with stress only with these 5 ones, right? But maybe now it's time to develop new ones. And I'm realizing that actually connecting to each other, people are learning so many ways in which others are also coping. That may give you some ideas, I would suggest. But still, if you require a much more personalized experience and a personalized solution, you can definitely seek a professional also who can help you through this journey. But this is time for adaptation and time for maybe developing new ones also.
Okay. This is a question from a woman entrepreneur. There are times I feel guilty for not keeping up my home well. Not always, but at times. I miss my help maid, and at the same time wonder if I've become too dependent. Do others feel this way? How do you cope?
Right. So first of all, let me use the technique that I always use in counseling, which is called universalization. So I feel you are not alone.
Yeah, Dr. Aparna, it's a little closer, please. Sorry.
Yeah. So I just want to, no, thank you so much for your reminder. So I think I'm using another technique called universalization to tell you, I think many crores of women are feeling exactly what you are feeling, right? I think they are understanding what that help meant earlier, and they are feeling a pinch of it also. But it is further complicated for women by the internalized gender discourses that all of us are constantly bombarded with. Yeah. So regularly women are told that they are responsible for domestic work, which is unfortunately unvalued, unstructured, unpaid, and invisible, right? But now, because you are an entrepreneur, there is an additional pressure that you have to be a superhuman being. You have to be professionally successful. And all these women are also portraying this narrative of, oh, I balance everything so beautifully, and people actually applaud me for that. I think it's time to let go of some of those. We also need to deconstruct who are these people whose voices we have internalized, and is this who I want to be, or is this what they want me to be, right? So it's okay. I think it's okay. You are just a human being. If you don't wash dishes, if you just keep your house unclean, survive. Others will survive. And I think be grateful. I think definitely exercise great gratitude towards your health, because sometimes we take those things for granted also. I think it's absolutely okay to be in touch with who you want rather than what other people want you to be.
Right.
I also want to interject.
Yeah, sure.
There's so much on social media, and Aparna was saying social media is harmful. And there's a lot about, I'm learning how to bake, I'm learning a different language, I'm doing X, Y, Z with my kids. This is not a time for perfectionism. This is not a time for doing fabulous things. The whole world is in a grave threat. So let's focus on our survival and on our coping rather than trying to do everything at one time. And it's all right if we don't. It's absolutely all right.
Can I take what Raj has already said, just one or two sentences, that seriously people are telling me that they feel the pressure to maintain that perfectionism and that great narrative of being together during these times also. And they are just asking me that, does everybody act and we feel so perfect? The fact is that people are not feeling perfect. All of these are very desperate attempts to feel perfect. You do
Right.
your attempts. Don't emulate what others are doing.
Yeah. Next question is, there is an increased pressure nowadays to upskill oneself during the downtime, resulting in people wanting to absorb as much information as possible by attending a maximum webinars and reading every article forwarded. How do you suggest we handle that?
Right. So again, let me start with myself. I think I am webinar fatigued. Yeah. This is a new term which is coined by social media only. It's not my term. That really, I think this whole narrative again of turn the adversities into potentialities and growth. Yeah, growth doesn't happen in such a speedy manner. We are not anyway. Aviation industry has closed, so we are not all flying. Right, we are moving, and each individual space is very, very different. I think you need to remind yourself on an everyday basis, I am different. What is it that I want to learn? Again, connecting it to the previous answer, I feel that there is a pressure not only to continue to develop yourself or grow, but to grow in the fashion that others are doing. Yeah, social media is also creating this competitiveness about, oh, my colleagues attended these many. The FOMO also, the fear of missing also. If I don't do that, then what if COVID ends and I lag behind the whole world? Yeah. I think which I'm sure that all entrepreneurs feel on an everyday basis also. This is another avatar of COVID FOMO. So
Right.
I think let's resist that pressure.
Yeah.
Remind yourself, you are different. My pace is different. I will decide what will actually contribute to my growth rather than contributing to the clutter and distress. Yeah, I think. Raj, do you want to add something?
Yeah.
I'm just going to refer back to what I said earlier. Let's not just look at narrowly at quantitative returns. Let's look at qualitative considerations. Now, part of that is good self-care. How many of you have focused on that? How many of you take time out for that every day? And I mean truly for yourself. MHI has a resource booklet that the Ascent team will share with you on different types of self-care. But believe me when I say it is as much or even more so critically an investment in your own growth.
Right. There are people who have requested for these tools and apps that Dr. Aparna had mentioned to be shared with them later. So we will get that across to you, to each member who's attending the session.
Sure. But I'm happy to know that people want those apps, which means I think to me, this is a great indication that you are thinking about your mental health.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Tools and self-assessment and the self-care booklet that Rajvi mentioned also, we're going to collect that and send it across to our members. The other one is a statement more than a question. Social isolation for mankind is very new and that will create more problems than COVID itself. Do any of you want to validate that, respond to that?
Raj, do you want to go first? Yeah.
I would say that, yes, there are some very, it's an unprecedented situation. None of us are prepared for it. And I can see it in two different ways. We are all of our patterns are disrupted. The way that we see life as normal has been disrupted. But let's also use this maybe and figure out reasons why we have landed up here and what we need to do to change in our patterns, possibly. So you are absolutely right. I do think that in terms of mental health considerations, the impacts of this are immense. They're critical. They are going to be long-term. But I think we can also use this differently and see what we can change in our own patterns. And I've been reading online and interacting with people where they've said, oh, my maid is not there, but actually I find washing dishes extremely soothing and calming. So you may end up learning more things about yourself. There's no doubt that this immense of a change does have very far-reaching implications.
Right. Right. So
Right.
I would like to just add two things to what Raj said. One is I think I said it in my presentation that social distancing doesn't mean emotional distancing, right? So, but I'm seeing very interesting pattern as every week progresses. Yeah. The first week, people were just grappling with it. Second week, people were very enthusiastic. Every family member was connecting, WhatsApp calling, Zoom meetings, let's play online games. As weeks progress, people are feeling fatigued by that also. So I just feel that two kinds of connections are important: social connections, but connection with self is also equally important. And I feel both are very, very interlinked. As every week is passing by, people are getting into new normal routine, but people are also somewhere feeling fragmented within, and therefore they are not able to connect outside. So I think by today's session we want to tell you that take charge of both, right? Because this is the world that we have to. So many of my clients are telling me, I don't know whether I can walk on the streets, I don't know how to talk to human beings where there is no screen between both of us. Will I have old skills? So I just feel that keep practicing them. You are going to need them hopefully at least after 30th of May is what I'm predicting. Yeah.
It's another question: how to stay away from phone and WhatsApp because we miss out information or some important message. Again, FOMO around that.
Yeah, but to give you a very technical psychology based answer, there are three ways in which we can do that quickly to share tips. People, again, this is a habit changing exercise. Yeah. And this is a habit which is not developed only COVID times. It is a pre-existing habit which is sort of, taken new heights or levels. Yeah. So if you seriously want to change this habit, in during the first few days, you decide what is your goal. Yeah. That is the first thing. What is healthy and what is doable healthy right now? If you say I'm going to look at my phone at 5 minutes, I think all of you have a panic attack. So you decide what is healthy goal for you, and then accordingly start keeping the phone somewhere else. Yeah, we call that actually managing the antecedents, because having a phone accessible is the biggest trigger of using the phone. Yeah. So just put it away for some time. Designate phone times also, I think, in the initial stages. And I think then stick to one or two channels, one or two print media, or whatever you trust as reliable, and stick to that. Nothing is going to, you are not going to be scratched in any way. You are going to be very, very intact and emerge really successful after this. So nothing is going to be missed.
Okay. Can we take an audio question now, Shravana?
Sure, Archana.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah, I'm Vinod from Chennai. This is question to Ms. Aparna.
Yeah.
Okay, I was gone through your complete presentation. Exactly, the first week I was completely in a fear zone, and after that I moved into a learning zone, and after I moved into a growth zone. But I was not able to consistently maintaining the same phase. It's keep fluctuating. I think it gone into a growth phase, but suddenly one day it coming back to a fear zone. Was not able to consistently maintaining in one phases. But how do I retain it in one phase, or like sustain it in the positive zone on a continuous day? When they keep going, I think keep fluctuating, and then the fear is getting started some point of time. So and one day I'm thinking back, okay, 40 days gone, what I did it. Some kind of fear is getting there. How do I retain it in a same, whether in a learning phase or in a growth phase?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think, first of all, it tells me that you're relating to the presentation and you are applying it to your life. I think, which is very, very heartening to know. And I feel that whenever again and again you start on a journey, we can't assume that journeys are linear, right? It's never going to happen that you will continuously move in a forward sort of a direction. It is very normal, very, very natural to keep fluctuating. That life moves in circles. It doesn't move in lines, actually, right? So the minute you find yourself that, okay, this was my direction, but I have lapsed. To go back to my analogy that I was using, that if I have lapsed, I think you just need to seriously, this is a very cliche word, but I'm going to still use it. You just need to be very, very compassionate towards yourself. Being hard on yourself, many of us believes, leads to better success. That's actually a very unrealistic expectation of yourself. Being compassionate doesn't mean being complacent. Being compassionate means accepting oneself as a human being, knowing that, okay, I did not move in a linear direction, but tomorrow is a new day and I'll move in that direction. And maybe letting go of the expectation of consistency also for a while. I think as long as you're trying, as long as you have the intention, I think that is good enough. Many people are struggling with even that in today's time. So I want to congratulate you for having tried this and having maintained this for so long. Yeah. So my best wishes to you.
Thanks, Vinod. Can we have the next audio question, Shravana?
Hi. Hi, this
Yeah.
is Suresh Soni here. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. Thanks to Ascent and team. Goes along with what Vinod has asked. I'm here. I have my daily routine, the exercise, meditation, yoga. I have my own corner as an office. But then it becomes a problem at home that my wife and children feel that I'm always on the computer, laptop, having so many webinars to attend. There's a misunderstanding. Even though you're at home, you're not giving time to the family. When I'm getting into the family, I get calls, boss, this webinar is on, you're not there, you're supposed to present. It's too much of demanding, and sometimes lose focus of what we are supposed to do. I feel at work, at least if I go to work, that 8 hours or 6 hours of work is done. But here, in spite of that, it's only consuming my energy, but I don't find it coming to be very productive. And social media, we are away. Luckily, I'm not on TV, not newspapers, but still it's coming to us. Please guide me in how do we tackle the situation. Thanks for answering.
Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Suresh Kumar, for your question, because I feel that you have asked the question and you have answered your question also.
Oh.
What I mean by that is, I think this is a narrative, again, I'm hearing from literally. So there is a narrative which is changing every week. Initially, there was a romanticizing of COVID, saying that, oh my God, I have so much of time and I don't know what new things to learn. And now people are saying that the personal and the professional is completely merged. Oh, so every expert is telling us create a small corner within the household that will lead to boundaries. But the boundaries are not so clearly demarcated just by assigning a corner of the house as your office, unfortunately. So many are sailing in the same boat as you. Right? And families will find it even more hard, because when you're gone for office, they can't see you. Here they can see you, but you're not accessible. So they can't understand, when you are there, why can't you give 5 minutes also? So I can perfectly understand your family's plight and your plight also. And it's a very difficult, but I'm sensing 2 or 3 things perhaps could be done. One is perhaps having a clear dialogue with your family is extremely important. Yeah, because I can see your tone between being a professional self and also being a family self. So maybe collaboratively deciding what is the best balance for that. And secondly, I was also thinking that maybe deciding during the beginning of the day also what your day is going to look like, and maybe having your family access to that information will give some sense of predictability also. And together you can decide what breaks are good enough breaks for both of you. Doable, but quality time also. So that I feel that more than the content, the process of communication also tells family that you are thinking about their well-being as you are thinking about your professional well-being. So that message needs to go loud and clear. But tough times, all my empathy is also for you, definitely. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I will improve upon my communication. Thank you.
Thank you. This question, Rajvi, I think you should take it. This is around work, how do you do with employees? Can you let us know, we need to retrench some staff post lockdown. How do you think we can help to assist them to cope with this emotionally? So workplace mental health.
Okay, I missed the first part of the question.
So we need to retrench some staff post the lockdown. How do you think we can help to assist them to cope up with this emotionally?
I think it's better that Aparna answers it first.
Okay.
So, I'm also reading about some of the reports which are meant for entrepreneurs, especially during COVID times, as to what entrepreneurs should do. I feel step number 1, Raj only answered some time back, is living by example. Yeah. You talking about mental health and being open about your mental health. By that, I'm not saying that you spill the beans and, sort of tell out all your secrets, but saying that mental health is important. Portraying yourself as a much more complex human being rather than this invincible, exterior, strong person will actually give a permission within your organizational culture to talk about issues, yeah, to talk about mental health, to talk about vulnerabilities. That is one. Number two, there are excellent actually workplace mental health kits which are available, which can be structurally, so it can range from individual well-being and what can be improved, team well-being, what can be improved, to structurally at an organizational level, what can be done. But I feel that simple things, and everything about mental health doesn't have to be serious also. I think we can joke around it. We can really have a lighter conversation around mental health also. People are connecting and doing some fun meetings also. That's also another way of taking care of mental health. But I would suggest that doing a plan would be really helpful, which is a far more, rather than one of, I'm seeing many organizations are doing one-off activities which are like, these glimmering stars which sort of disappear in the dark sky. So do a much more planned kind of an intervention and involve your team in planning that also, so that they will become the co-owners of that plan and they will get better involved also.
Okay. There is another audio question. Shravana, can we take that? From Suhas.
Sure. Yeah. So
go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Suhas. We can't hear you.
Yeah, it's come, but it can't. Yeah.
We have another member who's raised his hand.
Yeah, can we go ahead?
Sure. Yeah. Madhav, if you can hear us, can you please unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question, please?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead, ask your question.
Dr. Aparna,
yeah.
I'm experiencing some weird thing of late. I'm not able to tolerate changes in the emotions. If anything is changing, I'm trying to stay constantly in a similar state of emotions. A slightest change here and there in emotions, and I start crying or something like that. Like watching Ramayana and Ram losing his wife also makes me cry. My son making some project and showing me also makes me cry. Wife cooking something good dishes and instead of admiring her, I start crying. I am just not able to interpret whether this is depression or it is out of, because in last 20 years, I have never been at home as much time as I am today. So I'm not able to understand whether this is depression, signs of depressions, or it is just because I am experiencing new things since last couple of weeks.
Right. So, Madhavji, thank you so much, first of all, for that a very personal sort of a sharing. And I appreciate the fact that you took this question and decided to go ahead with it. And I think, first of all, while I was listening to your question, I can see that you are in tune with what is happening inside you. And you started by saying, I'm experiencing something unusual. So, clearly, I think it tells me that this is not a pattern that you are used to. Being at home or being so emotional, and so sensitive around everything that is happening with you. Now, to answer your question, whether this is depression or not, it's very difficult to ascertain. I think I'll require much more data to be able to say that, and it's unfair for me to diagnose or to say anything at this juncture. But I can definitely say that, yeah, I think your system, see, when do we start feeling so emotional, yeah, and so vulnerable? Maybe in everyday life, whatever resources you have within you are competent, are sufficient to take care of some of your demands, or you can generate many more also when there is no lockdown, when you have all the other luxuries or resources. I think the lockdown, all of us are not realizing, literally every week I'm seeing people's narratives are changing and their resources are getting depleted. So what could have been a perfect simple Ramayana or your wife's great food, and whatever would have been an appropriate response at that time is unfortunately not available to you, because many of our resources seriously are getting depleted. So I just feel that first of all, it's okay to to have this kind of an experience, and maybe we can have, or we can try suggesting some other resources where you do talk about whatever stress you are experiencing. Because I was very carefully listening. You said that whatever is changes are happening externally, you are reacting to that also, which means those changes are actually taxing your current resources. So maybe you need to develop different ways of looking at those changes or reacting to those changes. But I just want to say that, not sure whether this is depression. Maybe it's just a stress or traumatic reaction to whatever is happening. It's a perfectly normal reaction to an abnormal situation, and not an abnormality of any kind possible. Yeah.
Thank you.
Archana, your this thing is muted.
The next question is, Dr. Aparna, my business has come to a grinding halt. I'm guilty of consciously not thinking deeply about business continuity, as I know it's going to stress me out and I have no answers. Just keeping myself busy speaking to other entrepreneurs, watching TED, consuming COVID updates, Netflix, scared that I may not be able to sustain for long. What should I do?
Okay. So again, thank you so much for your sharing. Whoever has asked this question. I was saying that all of us are reacting in maybe 4 different ways. Fly, freeze, or feel scared, or sort of fight. I feel you're frozen. Many of people are telling me that they're feeling numb. They don't want to engage. They have literally disconnected. We call this dissociation, right? And again, dissociation is a perfectly normal reaction to a flooded exterior, which is taxing all our systems. Yeah. So I just feel that you are maybe doing 1 or 2 things. One is you have dissociated. You have decided to do not engage, because engaging means you have to answer. Engaging means you have to plan and be responsible for it also, is how I'm understanding. Maybe I hope I'm moving in the right direction. But another thing, I also feel that you are keeping yourself busy in some other ways. Yeah. So that gives you a semblance of the fact that, okay, I'm not doing this, but I'm doing something else. Yeah. So that gives us still a semblance of I'm performing, I'm doing, I'm in action, but that action may not be appropriate for the responsibility that is knocking at your door also. I feel that right now, absolutely, it's okay to be who you are and the way you are reacting, right? Whenever you are swimming also, every time you can't keep moving. We have to float in between. So this is a floating phase, and hopefully, you will survive through this, and then you will have greater resources. But eventually, if you have a fair idea that maybe this business is not going to work, then maybe eventually you will have to think about what else is going to be in store. And whenever you have greater sort of a grit, greater resources, maybe engaging. I'm not an expert. Maybe Raj can also take you through that. But I'm sure that many entrepreneurs have to think about, what if this doesn't. I've seen this among many entrepreneurs. They keep saying that 1 more turn, 2 more years, 3 more months, and then I think everything is going to be perfect. We just need to find out, is that realistic? Are we fooling ourselves? Are we just borrowing time? Maybe those are the questions that we need to answer. Yes, Raj?
I'm just going to say that pick up from what Aparna said is, at a time when you feel that maybe you have more internal strength, I want you to remind yourself that no one told you that you have to be an entrepreneur, that you have done it on your own, and to use that strength to then reach out to community. Being an entrepreneur does not mean that you have to be isolated and alone. Simply also in a time of lockdown, you do not. And with Ascent, you do have a community. So I suggest use them. You can reach out to one person, you can reach out to your trust group. But that's a very important community to have, and hopefully a safe space to share your fears. Because maybe you're fearing for yourself, you're fearing for your business, something that you have spent time growing, you are fearing for your employees, but find that safe space, find that ecosystem that is a safe space, and possibly if you have upper level management, share your fears with them. Maybe they're experiencing similar fears to you. But take your time and do it at a time when you are feeling some sort of internal strength. And of course, reminding yourself that, yes, you have done this on your own and it was your internal voice that helped you do it. So bank on your internal voice and the communities that you have created.
We have a couple more questions, so I'm going to extend the webinar by another 10 minutes. My request to both the panelists is to keep your responses crisp so that we can take as many questions as possible. If they're repetitive by nature, I'll not ask them, but seems like we have some good questions here. Would love to take them. Quickly, how do we improve the mental health of the team? A lot of who are alone, away from families, or confined to small, cramped houses and with few outlets to entertain themselves or keep themselves busy, or improve their own health without the routine of going out and working in factories.
Raj, do you want to start? Yeah.
I think Aparna, you're in a much better place to start, but I'll say hopefully if you already have an EAP program, do talk to the EAP provider to see how they can support better. If you don't, this is a great time to engage, and I'm sure Ascent will be able to provide you some resources, or maybe iCall will, on the EAP programs out there. The other thing is, one is you will have to have your own oxygen masks on. So if you are doing it for some of your employees, remember, just as you have a community around Ascent, if you create a safe space for people to talk and share that these experiences and emotions are absolutely valid and normal during COVID time, it may help. Aparna, I'll hand it to you.
No, I just feel that you have already answered the question, but I feel that reaching out to your employees is extremely important. Making some regular phone calls, asking them how they are doing, sharing some tips also. And I'm telling you that those tips are something that nobody needs to tell, but hearing those tips validates that it's a reminder to you that I have to keep doing it continuously. Be gracious if you can. Help people not only just through emotional support. People require practical support right now. If you can't offer that support, at least link them to that support wherever they can get that, or link them to EAP services, because this is not only just an emotional distress times, it's an economic distress time also, and we need to look at both actually.
How to identify and manage emotional imbalances in some members of the team who right now seem to be upbeat about business while working from home. Business as such is doing better than the pre-COVID levels for this particular individual. We're conducting online social activities, but individual imbalances don't really come out in these. Everything seems to be upbeat, but if you have to figure out if there is an emotional imbalance, how does one go around it?
I genuinely don't know how to answer that question, because I'm not sure what the question is trying to probe into. But there seems to be some sort of a suspicion or some sort of mistrust about this upbeatness. Right. That's what I'm sensing, right? Will it be sustainable? What will happen? And therefore, can I find out that is this the real one, or is this a sort of a put on kind of a music? I just feel that the time is going to say enjoy as long as it is there, but I feel that my one suggestion is start planning life after lockdown. If you start planning it after the lockdown, not going to work. Start conversations today so that the chances of consistency in that upbeatness or some part of that may be there.
So this is a question from a woman entrepreneur. If there are two professionals working at home, how should they manage their work and family commitment?
I'll just say just a quick answer. I just feel that whoever are women clients who are talking to me, I just feel that I give two messages. One message is, you might have stuck to the scripts of what it means to be a good woman or good super woman. Now I think it's time to let go of it. It's time to negotiate. It's time to divide labor, and it's time to remind yourself that there is equality. Both of you are professionals, and therefore there has to be good division of labor also. And just as self-care, we are telling people routine rakho, but I'm telling many women that take some time from the routine for yourself and prioritize self-care. So I think those could be some of the tips.
Okay. Of course, some people are asking for tools on gratitude, so we'll reach out to Dr. Aparna and get those for you and share it with the cohort. But are there any tips to handle uncertainty of short term and stop the overthinking and overanalyzing?
Yeah.
Any tips on that?
Yeah. Some of these are very long questions, but first tip is, if you are just overthinking or over worrying, as I said, that American Psychological Association has noticed this pattern among many people right now as worrying feels safe, because you still feel that you are doing something. But again, as I said, that I showed that curve. Excess worry is not going to be productive. In fact, if you want to worry, a very proven technique is worry time. Decide 15 minutes in a day, I'm going to worry, right? Keep time for that. But as soon as you see yourself worrying, 2 hours have passed, 4 hours have passed, and you just continue to worry, I think you need to put a stop to that and move on. Distraction, grounding techniques, mood change techniques can help you actually pluck yourself out of that worrying state immediately, and then it may take you to a constructive zone later on.
Another member says that again, it's a statement. I'm worried about staff may leave or not come back once everything starts after COVID. It's
Raj,
a statement, but if you can respond to that in any way, both of you.
I'll answer very briefly and say, if it is a worry, then it's valid, perfectly all right. Again, get in touch with your community, see how others are handling it, draw up a plan. One of the best ways to deal with worry is actually figuring out a plan and then a contingency plan. Maybe reach out, talk to them, see what their worries are, see whether you can solve for those. If you're talking about maybe factory workers and such, think about what you could do to maybe enable their return. Again, as Aparna said, plan for post-lockdown from now.
No, yeah.
That's Aparna?
Probably, yeah, Aparna?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Go ahead with the next.
So I think we'll take the one last question, and Shravana, let us know if there is an audio question. But this is, with so much information floating around, the mind gets confused on what is right or wrong, and eventually the purpose of life and all that questions. So
yeah, so I hear two questions within this. One is about information overload, but the other one is a largely meta question about existential concerns, right?
Yes.
So as far as the first question, which is a information overload questions, all experts in the world are telling you, trust 1 or 2 reliable sources of information and consume information only from those and not from others, because seriously, it's the most protective strategy right now to keep your mind sane. That is one. But as far as existentialist concerns are concerned, I don't think there is a quick fix for that. Yeah, COVID, just as it is really trying our resources, it is also giving us an opportunity for introspection. And I mean, it's applicable to me also. I think it is questions, we just keep going through the motions of life, don't engage with life, we don't think beyond our business. This is an opportunity to think of the world as a whole, purpose of life, meaning of life, why am I here? I think engage with those questions. They will cause distress, but I think we will hopefully emerge with some sensible answers. There is no quick fix there. Yeah, for sure.
We would like to now wind up the webinar. Any last words from both of you before I have some things to say?
I want to thank you. People are still here. I mean, and many have already left. So I just feel, to those who have left and to those who are here, take care of your mental health. Prioritize your mental health. Be very, very mindful about your mental health, and whenever possible, help others also. Stay safe, and hopefully all of us will grow after this.
Rajvi, any words from you?
Thank you all so much. And I just want to reiterate this point that now we have spoken about mental health individually. For all of you, we've spoken about it in terms of your communities and how that can help. We've spoken about it for your organization. So remember that COVID has taught us that it has to be a part of a systemic response. So let's look at that, including that proactively. Thanks so much.
So what we would also do is by today, tomorrow, we'll send out the recording of the webinar. Hopefully the presentation made by Dr. Aparna, also part of it. All the tools on, thought diaries and tools on gratitude, tools on self-care, all that. We'll assemble that together and send it out to all the participants, and actually beyond the participants, we'll just share it with the entire cohort. So thank you once again, Dr. Aparna. Thank you, Rajbir, for being part of this. And thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.